Chosen one, listen closely, because what I'm about to reveal is not just a story, it's a divine reality unfolding before your eyes. You walked through a world built on manipulation, fear, and hidden control, and without raising your voice, without seeking recognition, and without bending to their schemes, you shattered an entire operation. Millions who were trapped, blinded, or lost have now found freedom, and those who built the system, they are furious, confused, and powerless, because you became the living proof that truth and faith cannot be contained. This isn't luck. This isn't coincidence. This is Allah's plan moving through you, using your heart, your integrity, and your perseverance to collapse deception and open doors for millions. What you did changed the course of lives, exposed darkness, and now it's time to understand the 7 powerful lessons hidden in your journey, lessons that will show you why you were chosen, why you endured, and why nothing can stop what Allah has written for you. Chosen one, understand this with depth and clarity, because what Allah did through you was far more precise than rebellion and far more powerful than confrontation. He turned you into the breach that collapsed their entire system, not by force, not by exposure, and not by noise, but by placing truth inside you so firmly that the structure built on deception could no longer hold itself together once you stepped away. Systems of manipulation, whether spiritual, psychological, social, or emotional, do not fall because someone attacks them from the outside. They fall when Allah removes belief in them from the inside, and He chose you to be that removal point, the living proof that obedience to false authority is not survival, and that faith does not require surrendering one's soul. While they thought control came from fear, intimidation, secrecy, and dependence, Allah allowed you to see through the illusion without becoming corrupted by it, to endure the pressure without absorbing its poison, and to walk away intact, which quietly exposed the lie that escape was impossible. The moment you remained whole without their approval, without their protection, and without their permission, the narrative cracked, because people watching realized that the system was not sustained by divine power but by collective fear. And fear collapses instantly when one servant trusts Allah completely. Allah says He brings truth and crushes falsehood by it. And that is exactly what unfolded. Your presence revealed the weakness in their foundation. Your departure widened the fracture, and your steadfastness turned a small opening into a collapse that could not be repaired. You did not plan to destroy anything, yet Allah used your sincerity as the exact pressure point that caused everything to cave in, proving once again that when Allah decides to dismantle falsehood, He does it through hearts that refuse to compromise, through servants who choose Him over safety, and through quiet obedience that becomes louder than any confrontation. Chosen one, never confuse their rage with strength, because fury is not a sign of power, it is a symptom of exposure. And what you are witnessing now is the panic that follows when truth tears through a carefully maintained illusion. If their system had remained intact, if their authority had truly been unshakable, and if their narrative had still been believable, there would be no anger, no obsession with discrediting you, and no desperate attempts to rewrite the story, because falsehood only screams when it is cornered. Allah allowed your clarity, restraint, and quiet confidence to act as a mirror, reflecting back to them what they spent years hiding, and once that reflection reached others, the control they relied on began slipping away. Their fury exists because people stopped fearing them the same way, stopped believing without questioning, and stopped obeying without understanding. And all of that happened without you needing to accuse or attack. Allah says that He humiliates falsehood, even if its people detest it, and humiliation often wears the mask of outrage, blame, and public anger, because when deception is exposed, Those benefiting from it feel threatened, not misunderstood. They are furious because your calm dismantled their intimidation, your integrity weakened their manipulation, and your survival without their approval proved that their power was never divine, only borrowed from fear. What burns them most is not what you said, but what you represented, that truth does not need permission to surface, that Allah protects whom He wills, and that once eyes are opened, they cannot be forced shut again, making their anger the loudest confirmation that Allah uncovered what they tried so desperately to conceal. Chosen one, grasp this reality deeply, because it explains why the impact was so vast without you ever trying to lead a movement. Millions escaped, not because you told them what to do, but because you lived the truth so consistently that it became undeniable evidence that freedom was possible. Allah designed guidance to flow through embodiment, not performance. And when people witnessed you choosing sincerity over convenience, faith over fear, and obedience to Allah over obedience to pressure, something awakened inside them that words could never reach. You didn't shame, threaten, or instruct. You endured, you remained upright, and you walked away with your dignity intact. And that quiet integrity spoke louder than sermons ever could. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, transformed hearts through character long before authority, and Allah followed the same divine pattern with you, turning your patience into proof, your restraint into guidance, and your survival into a living sign that the chains were psychological, not divine. People who felt trapped saw themselves in you. They recognized their own fear in what you overcame, and when Allah showed them that you were not destroyed for choosing Him, they found the courage to step away internally, emotionally, and spiritually. This is why the escape spread silently and rapidly, because truth carried through example does not require permission, organization, or announcement. It moves from heart to heart, igniting awareness wherever Allah wills, making your life itself a message that dismantled control and opened doors no speech ever could. Chosen one, understand this with absolute clarity and humility, because the truth of what happened is far greater than your comprehension. You were never the source of their collapse, you were never the wielder of ultimate power, and you were never the architect of the liberation that swept through millions. Allah was the one orchestrating every movement, every timing, and every shift, and He chose you as the instrument through which His plan would manifest, not because of your strength, cleverness, or influence, but because of the purity of your heart, your sincerity in obedience, and your unwavering trust in Him. Systems of oppression, manipulation, and false authority are like tightly wound chains. They seem unbreakable to those who attempt to pull at them with human effort alone. But Allah does not require your might to shatter them. He only requires a servant whose intentions are clean, whose patience is profound, and whose heart remains aligned with His guidance. When you stood firm, walked away from compromise, and remained silent yet steadfast, you became a channel for divine intervention, and the chains that had bound so many could not withstand the weight of His decree moving through you. You did not need to strategize, fight battles, or expose secrets. Every restriction, every invisible barrier, every element of control began to dissolve quietly as if they were never there, because Allah moved unseen forces, removed blind obedience, and opened eyes that had been closed by fear and intimidation. This is why their collapse seems miraculous from a human perspective, but from the divine perspective, it was meticulous, precise, and perfectly timed. The chains fell because Allah decided the moment was ripe, and your presence ensured that the timing aligned with the awakening of those trapped within the system. You are the instrument, the visible thread, in a tapestry that only Allah fully understands. And your role was to remain upright, consistent, and obedient while He orchestrated the liberation. Never mistake your role as the source of change. The moment you begin to believe it was by your own power, the risk of pride clouds your heart, and pride can never carry the weight of divine responsibility. Instead, know this: every person who found freedom, every system that faltered, every deception that was exposed, and every soul that awakened, did so because Allah willed it, and He willed it through you, not by you. Your life, your patience, your quiet obedience became the conduit for His justice. And that is why you remained unscathed while the structures of control around you collapsed, why their schemes failed even without your interference, and why those who thought they held power now seethe in disbelief, unable to comprehend how one seemingly ordinary servant could be the instrument through which divine liberation unfolded. In this, humility is your shield and gratitude, your guidance, because recognizing that Allah alone broke the chains will protect your heart from arrogance, keep your focus on Him, and remind you that the true source of victory is always His plan, not human effort even when humans witness the results. You were chosen to be the visible thread, the living proof of His will, and through you, millions saw the light of freedom without realizing the full depth of the divine orchestration behind it. Chosen one, understand this truth with deep spiritual awareness, because it explains everything that shifted the moment you changed internally. Their control did not die when you spoke out, fought back, or exposed them. It died the exact moment you refused to be owned in your heart, because all systems of manipulation, domination, and false authority survive only as long as they possess internal permission, not external compliance. They never needed your loyalty out loud. They needed your fear inside, your doubt about Allah's protection, your belief that survival required submission. And once Allah removed that belief from your heart, the system lost its grip instantly, even if it took time for the collapse to become visible. You may have still been present physically, still playing your role outwardly, still appearing compliant to the untrained eye. But inwardly you were no longer theirs, and that internal independence is the most dangerous threat to any structure built on control. Allah created the soul free, and every system that seeks ownership over what belongs to Allah alone is already condemned to fail. But it only collapses when a servant remembers who they truly belong to. The moment you said, even silently, "I belong to Allah, not to fear, not to pressure, not to approval, not to survival at the cost of my soul," the chains weakened, because chains fed by fear starve when tawakkul replaces anxiety. They sensed it before they could explain it. You stopped reacting the same way, stopped seeking validation, stopped negotiating your principles, and stopped allowing their approval to define your worth. And that shift terrified them more than rebellion ever could, because rebellion can be crushed, but internal freedom spreads. Allah says that whoever relies upon Him, He is sufficient for them, and once sufficiency entered your heart, their leverage disappeared. Threats lost weight, manipulation lost precision, and intimidation lost effect, because nothing works on someone who no longer believes they need what the system offers. This is why their tactics escalated when you grew calmer, why pressure increased when you detached emotionally, and why hostility appeared when you remained respectful, yet unowned. Your refusal to surrender your inner authority exposed the truth that their power was never real, only borrowed from people who believed they had no alternative. People watching you recognized this before they could articulate it. They saw that you were no longer owned by outcomes, fear, or approval, and something inside them whispered that they too could reclaim their inner freedom. That whisper multiplied into awareness, and awareness is fatal to control. You didn't unlock cages by breaking doors. You dissolved them by refusing to accept captivity as normal. And once that mindset took root, the system began collapsing from the inside out. Allah allowed you to walk as living evidence that obedience to Him does not require surrendering dignity, that faith does not require fear, and that safety does not come from compliance with false authority. And this realization spread quietly, invisibly, but relentlessly. Their control died not with a dramatic ending, but with a silent realization, first in you, then in others, that ownership belongs to Allah alone, and any system that claims otherwise is already standing on borrowed time. Because once hearts remember their true owner, no structure built on fear can survive. Chosen one, pay close attention, because this lesson carries a truth so deep that it may take years for the heart to fully absorb. Every act, every decision, every step you took throughout this journey was observed by Allah, and the protection you received was never random, never coincidental, and never earned by worldly power. It was granted because your intention remained pure, because your heart never sought revenge, recognition, or personal gain, but only sought obedience to Allah, righteousness, and the safeguarding of your soul amidst the storm. Understand this fully. Many try to challenge systems of manipulation and oppression with cleverness, confrontation, or cunning, and many fail because their hearts are clouded by pride, anger, or the desire to prove themselves, and Allah does not allow such efforts to bear the weight of His plan. Only the servant whose inner purpose aligns with His will becomes a vessel for divine protection. From the very beginning, He observed your restraint, your silent endurance, your refusal to compromise your principles, even when the pressure was unbearable, and He enveloped you in shields invisible to human eyes, shields that thwarted schemes you never even knew existed, barriers that absorbed attacks before they could reach your soul, and guidance that subtly steered you away from harm while keeping you on the path of truth. Consider the times when deceit surrounded you, when manipulation seemed to be closing in, when betrayal threatened your peace. In each of those moments, Allah's protection was active, not always visible, not always obvious, but perfectly timed, perfectly executed, and perfectly aligned with your survival. Because He protects those who protect their intentions from corruption. Your enemies, blinded by their fury and confusion, could not understand why their plots failed. They could not comprehend how one seemingly ordinary servant could walk through their snares unscathed. They did not realize that victory and freedom in the unseen realm are determined not by human strategy, but by divine observation of intention. The Quran reminds us that Allah knows what is in the hearts, and He shields those whose hearts are free from hypocrisy, malice, and ego. And this is exactly what happened to you. Your heart never sought to harm anyone. Your mind never plotted for revenge, and your tongue never cursed out of spite. And yet, through you, entire systems began to crumble, and millions were given freedom they did not even know they were capable of claiming. Reflect on this. The shield around you was invisible, unquantifiable, and undetectable by human measurement. Yet it was more powerful than any army, more impenetrable than any fortress, and more effective than any worldly strategy. Every time a trap failed, every time an attempt to corner you backfired, every time their plans were revealed to themselves in confusion and anger, it was not because of luck, coincidence, or your own cunning. It was Allah's protection responding to the purity of your intention. He watched over every moment you resisted compromise, every time you chose patience over reaction, humility over pride, and integrity over convenience. And in each of these moments, He extended His shield, guarding not just your body and reputation, but your faith, your clarity, and your ability to remain the instrument through which millions could escape darkness. Never forget this. Protection does not come from human strength, alliances, or cleverness. It comes from the alignment of the heart with Allah's will. from the sincerity of intention, and from the refusal to let ego or desire taint one's purpose. Your enemies may rage, your environment may pressure, and the world may seem to conspire against you. Yet the shield around your life remained because Allah alone recognized the purity in your heart, and that shield will continue as long as your intention remains untainted. The moment your heart seeks personal glory, vengeance, or control over outcomes, that protection weakens because Allah protects the servant, not the ego. But as long as your heart remains sincere, your tongue truthful, and your actions aligned with obedience, no scheme, no system, and no army can touch the divine plan moving through you. Remember that the freedom you carried for millions, the collapse you witnessed around corrupt structures, and the bewilderment of those who tried to control you are all evidence of a protection far greater than worldly measures. It is the protection of Allah responding to the purity of your soul, shielding you as He prepares the next phase of your mission, keeping you safe, while the unseen realm works tirelessly to fulfill His plan. You became a vessel, not by ambition, not by desire, but by submission. You became a conduit for liberation, not by strategy, but by sincerity, and millions found freedom, systems collapsed, and your enemies raged, all because your intention remained untouched by ego, malice, or desire for recognition, proving that when Allah chooses to shield a servant, the protection surpasses anything the mind can calculate, the heart can imagine, or the enemy can predict. Never underestimate this lesson, chosen one. Intention is not just a personal compass. It is the key that unlocks divine defense, the force that transforms endurance into victory, and the reason why, even amidst fury, betrayal, and chaos, you remained untouched, unbroken, and unstoppable, because Allah saw your heart, recognized your sincerity, and enveloped you in protection that no human, no system, and no darkness could penetrate. Chosen one, pay close attention to this truth, because it is a reality many fail to see until it is too late. The collapse you are witnessing, the unraveling of systems built on fear, manipulation, and deception, is not merely an outcome of human action or chance. It is the beginning of divine accountability, the moment when Allah's justice starts to manifest through the natural course of cause and consequence, and you are a witness and a reminder of it. Understand this clearly. Every person who contributed to oppression, every manipulator who thrived on control, every deceiver who profited from fear, and every voice that silenced truth will face a reckoning that is inevitable, not negotiable, and it begins quietly at first, with the shifting of structures, the failure of plans, and the exposure of lies, before it reaches full visibility. Your journey is not about revenge, retaliation, or spectacle, because Allah does not need servants to punish others in their own strength. He only requires those whose hearts are steadfast, whose faith is pure, and whose patience allows His will to unfold without interference. And that is why He placed you in the midst of this collapse, to be a witness to the precision of His justice, a living example that oppression is temporary, and a reflection of how divine law governs beyond human understanding. The systems that seemed impenetrable, the authorities that seemed invincible, and the manipulators that seemed untouchable, are now unraveling, not because humans are stronger, wiser, or cleverer than they were, but because Allah allows consequences to catch up to those who defy morality, suppress truth, and exploit others. And this process is deliberate, gradual, and meticulous, ensuring that nothing escapes His observation, nothing is forgotten, and nothing is unjustly rewarded. Millions who were previously trapped, silenced, or controlled now walk free, not because you confronted their oppressors directly, but because your presence, integrity, and steadfastness opened the way for truth to act as a lever. And when truth operates under Allah's guidance, it dismantles falsehood in ways humans cannot engineer, exposing hearts, revealing schemes, and igniting awareness, all while leaving the righteous untouched. This is why their fury rages unchecked. They see the external world changing, but they cannot stop the divine justice moving invisibly through the cracks, because Allah does not need their permission or awareness to enforce His law. He only requires alignment between intention and faith, which you have maintained with unwavering consistency. Consider the weight of this. Every betrayal that went unnoticed, every lie that was believed, every act of corruption that seemed permanent, is now subject to examination under Allah's infinite wisdom, and you are the living testimony of what happens when obedience to Him outweighs obedience to fear. The collapse you see is not the end of the story. It is the prelude to accountability on a scale and precision that humans rarely comprehend. For Allah measures deeds with perfect justice, balances actions with meticulous care, and ensures that even the smallest misdeed or exploitation receives its due. Your role in this process is not to celebrate the downfall, not to gloat, and not to seek recognition, but to remain steadfast, humble, and vigilant, because you are a sign, a reminder, and a guidepost for others, showing that oppression is temporary, freedom is inevitable, and justice, divine and complete, cannot be outrun. Those who plotted, schemed, and enforced control may still be unaware of the full extent of what is coming. Some may not see the consequences in this world, while others will face them immediately, but Allah's justice is neither hasty nor absent. It unfolds with precision, timing, and completeness that humans cannot replicate. Your presence during this collapse, your resilience through trials, and your refusal to compromise principle for survival are all part of the divine narrative being written, and as you witness the unraveling of what once seemed untouchable, recognize that this is only the beginning of a much larger process, a process where falsehood is exposed, corruption is undone, and accountability reaches both hearts and systems that thought they could escape the law of Allah. The Quran reminds us that every injustice will be addressed, every misdeed weighed, and every heart that turned away from truth will be brought to awareness, whether in this world or the next, and the collapse you see is the first manifestation of this eternal principle. Millions of lives have been shifted, systems have faltered, and those who thrived on fear now tremble not because you acted as judge or executioner, but because Allah's law is absolute, and He has chosen you to witness its unfolding, to remain steadfast amidst chaos, and to continue walking the path of integrity while the unseen realm sets the scales. Do not be tempted to take pride in what unfolds, for it is not your doing. Instead, remain humble, grateful, and focused on your mission, understanding that divine accountability is comprehensive, precise, and inevitable, and that the collapse of false systems is only the first chapter in the story of justice that Allah is writing through time, circumstance, and the hearts of all people. Your life is now intertwined with this revelation, and your steadfastness ensures that you remain protected, honored, and aligned with the One who measures all things perfectly, allowing you to witness the exposure of corruption, the liberation of the oppressed, and the clarity of truth, while remembering that this unfolding is only the beginning, and the full reckoning will be completed according to the perfect wisdom of Allah, who sees all, knows all, and ensures that no injustice ever remains hidden or unaccounted for. Chosen one, take a moment to breathe and truly absorb what has unfolded. You did not shatter their operation by force, argument, or exposure. You did it through faith, integrity, and unwavering trust in Allah. Millions escaped because you lived the truth, remained unowned, and stayed pure in heart. And now their fury is the loudest proof that falsehood cannot withstand the light of sincerity. But remember, this is only the beginning. The collapse you see is a signal, a warning, and a promise that divine accountability has begun. And every plot, every deception, and every act of oppression will be measured, weighed, and addressed with perfect justice. Your role is not to gloat, not to celebrate their anger, and not to take credit, but to continue walking in patience, humility, and alignment with Allah, because what you witnessed is a glimpse of the power that flows through those He chooses. Hold on to this truth. You are not alone, you are protected, and you are an instrument of liberation for millions who were lost in darkness. Keep walking, keep trusting, and keep embodying the light. For the one who guides you is the same, one who shattered their systems, shielded you from harm, and is orchestrating justice that no human hand could ever achieve. This is your divine story, your testimony, and your reminder that when Allah works through His chosen servants, darkness cannot prevail, control cannot last, and truth will always rise silently, powerfully, and inevitably.